Did you know that Hollywood doesn't just welcome you? It can also kick you out if you don't follow its rules. We've seen many successful actors fall into obscurity overnight, often for reasons everyone thinks they understand. But there's always a darker side we rarely hear about. Today we're going to talk about 30 actors who were blacklisted by Hollywood and the real reasons why. Shia LaBeouf. He gained momentum early on, transforming from a Disney Channel regular to a bankable movie lead. His energetic performances captivated directors and audiences alike, but off-camera behavior disrupted his career. Alcohol-related run-ins with the law started raising concerns, culminating in widely publicized altercations. One incident in Savannah, Georgia, featured him hurling racist and offensive remarks at police officers. This pattern of misconduct, combined with an abusive lawsuit filed by a former partner, eroded much of the industry's trust in him. Hollywood executives saw him as too unpredictable and controversial to guarantee smooth productions. He was also dropped from a high-profile project due to reports of poor on-set interactions, adding to the perception that he had become more trouble than he was worth. While he has shown moments of professional rebirth by immersing himself in independent films and performance art pieces, large studios appear hesitant to align themselves with him. The ongoing legal battles and his own admissions of erratic conduct strengthen the consensus that he is persona non grata in many quarters of the industry. Even when he attempts a comeback, the stigma of earlier actions continues to overshadow his talent, leaving significant doubt about a full Hollywood reintegration. Josh Trank. He arrived as a promising filmmaker after Chronicle, an inventive take on the superhero genre that impressed critics and audiences. Studios hoped he would inject fresh perspectives into existing franchises. However, the production of his Fantastic Four reboot revealed troubling behind-the-scenes behavior. Reports circulated of tension with the cast, isolation from the production team, and a general reluctance to collaborate. Allegations also emerged that he caused extensive property damage to a rented home during filming, costing the studio extra money. As word spread, it created an impression that he was erratic under pressure, jeopardizing the success of big-budget ventures. These rumors hurt his professional image so severely that he lost a chance to direct a standalone Star Wars installment, a role most up-and-coming directors would cherish. Efforts to bounce back, like directing Capone, failed to ignite much interest or box office success. Many industry observers believe the studios have quietly placed him on a do-not-hire list, viewing his unpredictability as a risk that outweighs his previous achievements. Even though he has undeniable talent, Hollywood typically demands consistency and reliability, so it appears that his once bright career trajectory has stalled indefinitely. Lloyd Bridges. He built his reputation as a charismatic actor with an impressive ability to handle both dramatic and comedic roles. However, during the mid-20th century, Hollywood faced intense scrutiny from the House Un-American Activities Committee, which sought to uncover alleged communist influences. Bridges was tied to the Actors Laboratory Theater, an organization rumored to have communist affiliations. Summoned to testify, he cooperated but still found himself blacklisted for a period, effectively losing access to leading roles in major projects. Although he eventually cleared his name, many consider that initial blacklisting a near-fatal blow to his career at the time. Thankfully, he was able to gradually rebuild his standing, returning in comedic classics like Airplane and reinventing himself for younger audiences. Had he not been able to overcome that Red Scare stigma, Hollywood might have lost an actor with genuine range and comedic timing. While he did manage a comeback, the traumatic experience of being banned for political reasons left a lasting mark. Today, his story is often cited as a cautionary tale of how political pressures can sideline an artist, at least temporarily, regardless of their popularity or the commercial viability they bring to projects. Thora Birch. She established herself early as a gifted child star with memorable performances in Hocus Pocus and later in award-winning productions like American Beauty. Despite demonstrating real talent, her filmography became sparse after the early 2000s. Much of the blame falls on her father, who acted as her manager and allegedly created hostile environments on set by demanding to observe intimate scenes and clashing with directors. This pattern of overbearing involvement reportedly led to abrupt terminations, making studios wary of hiring her. As word spread about backstage disruptions, producers found it simpler to avoid casting her altogether than to risk potential complications. This left her largely with lower-budget indie projects that offered limited visibility. While she never received an official ban from the industry, many believe her father's behavior effectively froze her out of major roles. She eventually stepped away from high-profile acting opportunities, focusing on smaller-scale productions, to maintain a less volatile career path. Despite occasional attempts at resurgence, including TV appearances, the reputation damage remains a hurdle. The result is a stalled trajectory that exemplifies how off-camera factors, especially management issues, can overshadow an actor's talent and curtail once promising opportunities. Isaiah Washington. He gained substantial recognition in network television for a prime role on a hit medical drama, appearing poised for an expanded big-screen presence. However, conflict with co-stars reportedly escalated to a point where homophobic slurs were used during an altercation. This behavior prompted immediate backlash and led to widespread coverage, painting him as unprofessional and volatile. The production team and network executives decided his continued presence was untenable, ultimately releasing him from his contract. Once that news became public, film and television decision-makers took note, concluding that his off-camera troubles posed a significant liability. While he later apologized, the damage to his reputation was already extensive. Finding himself labeled as problematic, major studios largely passed him over for roles that once seemed well within reach. Although he managed smaller roles and occasional guest spots post-controversy, the buzz he had earned during his initial success all but evaporated. Industry insiders believe the stigma remains, affecting casting choices and limiting access to high-profile projects. He has since discussed feeling blacklisted, pointing to a system that can be unforgiving once an actor's reputation veers into negative territory, regardless of prior achievements. CeeLo Green. He established himself as both a chart-topping singer and a reality TV personality, earning credit for his soulful voice and distinctive persona. However, legal troubles overshadowed his music career when he faced accusations of drugging a woman without her consent. Though he ultimately avoided severe penalties, the scandal disrupted his professional standing. His ill-advised social media comments about consent and legal responsibility worsened the situation, leading to the cancellation of his reality show almost immediately. Sponsors and networks distanced themselves, finding it too risky to associate with him while the allegations remained fresh in the public's mind. While he still appears occasionally on talent shows and continues to produce music, the volume of high-profile offers declined significantly. Some in the industry point to the ongoing public discomfort around his case and social media outbursts, saying he remains persona non grata for many mainstream brands. Although not under an official ban, the drop in demand for his services and the abrupt cancellation of major gigs point to an unofficial blacklisting. He continues to release material, but the negative associations linger, limiting his potential reach and making major collaborations harder to secure. Lena Horne. She was a groundbreaking vocalist and performer at a time when opportunities for Black entertainers were limited. She found her way into film through Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and captivated audiences with her vocal talent. Yet in the 1950s, she found herself effectively removed from the mainstream industry after having been labeled a communist sympathizer. Her connections to certain organizations were viewed with suspicion, and she was called out during the height of the Red Scare, where political affiliations could swiftly derail a career. As a result, major studios and producers shied away from casting her in roles, leaving her with minimal film opportunities. Nonetheless, she remained active through nightclub performances and recording sessions, carving out a successful path in live entertainment. These venues embraced her, focusing on her talent instead of alleged political ties. Over time, the blacklist era subsided, and she regained some foothold in television and music specials. But many historians point to this period as a prime example of how political hysteria stripped the film industry of diverse and dynamic talents. Although she eventually returned, the lost roles and momentum proved the blacklist's damaging power, especially when fueled by fears of communist influence. Michael Richards. He soared to fame as a beloved sitcom star, garnering accolades for his comedic timing. Yet one fateful night at a comedy club derailed his public image irreparably. Tensions with a group in the audience escalated, and he lashed out with a barrage of racist remarks, all of which were recorded and quickly circulated. Immediate condemnation followed, overshadowing years of television success. Despite apologizing publicly and expressing remorse, the stigma of that incident made him a high-risk hire for new projects. Networks and film studios wanted to avoid the inevitable controversy his presence could spark. While he occasionally resurfaced for cameo appearances or short-lived television ventures, industry insiders generally believed the audience had not forgiven or forgotten. He later expressed profound regret and described himself as struggling to move forward. Nonetheless, the comedy world and mainstream entertainment had moved on. Opportunities in television specials or reunions didn't materialize at the scale they once did, and he receded from frontline Hollywood roles. His situation serves as a cautionary tale about how a single outburst can irreversibly harm a public persona, making a once-beloved figure essentially untouchable in major entertainment circles. Jim Caviezel. He possessed the classical leading man looks and solid acting ability, earning acclaim for several early roles. But after portraying Jesus in a controversial biblical epic, the direction of his career changed drastically. Although widely praised for his dedication, the film's depiction of graphic violence and alleged anti-Semitic themes alienated many in Hollywood. Some industry players believe the movie's polarizing reception and the negative press surrounding it made Caviezel an unattractive pick for future mainstream projects. His advocacy for specific religious and social causes further distanced him from certain producers who preferred less divisive figures. He has maintained that he accepted the consequences knowingly, believing the film's message outweighed career risks. Over time, he has found work in smaller faith-based projects, cementing his reputation in that niche, but losing access to bigger budget and more diverse roles. Many feel studios quietly blacklisted him because executives perceive him as someone who draws strong reactions, which can pose marketing challenges. While not officially barred, his post-film journey highlights how moral or religious convictions can clash with Hollywood's mainstream expectations. He continues to work, but largely outside the spotlight he once seemed destined to dominate. Megan Fox. She rose to stardom practically overnight, largely thanks to a major sci-fi action franchise. Her striking looks and appeal drew massive attention, but she soon found herself on shaky ground after she openly criticized her director. By likening him to an infamous historical dictator, she crossed a boundary with a filmmaker known for big-budget blockbusters. Although the exact reasons for her abrupt removal from the next installment remain debated, many assume her remarks and public clashes contributed heavily. Some also fault the entertainment media's objectification of her, which made every outspoken comment more inflammatory. Despite the negative fallout, she landed subsequent roles, though not with the consistent frequency or exposure typical of an A-list star. The incident underscored the risk of calling out powerful figures in an industry where loyalty and silence are often rewarded. While she never faced a formal ban, her career momentum dipped significantly. Only in recent years, amid evolving social attitudes about workplace treatment and body image, has she gradually found her way back into more prominent roles. Still, the lingering effect of that high-profile feud shows how easily one can be sidelined by a powerful circle that expects unwavering cooperation. Katherine Heigl. She leveraged early success on a medical drama into film roles that showcased her comedic talents. Yet industry perception shifted after she publicly criticized a major comedy project that contributed significantly to her rise. Calling the film sexist, she put herself at odds with influential producers. Reports that she was difficult on set and selective about which accolades she would accept further tarnished her reputation. The tabloids fueled stories of her difficult label, leading producers and directors to wonder if collaborating with her was worth the potential headaches. Over time, roles became scarce, as studios preferred hassle-free partnerships. Although never formally barred, she found herself on the outside looking in for many marquee projects. She has worked steadily in television dramas and streaming series, but the once inevitable trajectory toward Hollywood's top tier stalled. In interviews, she has expressed regret over how past comments were perceived. Despite attempts at image rehabilitation, the hard-to-work-with narrative remains a stumbling block. Insiders feel she may have been quietly blacklisted for deviating from the unspoken rules of studio loyalty. She continues to push forward with new work, but that momentary rift left an indelible mark on her career path. Kathy Griffin. She cultivated a reputation for provocative humor, courting controversy as part of her brand. Yet one high-profile stunt involving a photo with a severed head prop resembling a political figure exceeded the public's threshold. Outrage spread quickly, causing networks to cancel her live tour dates and sponsors to sever relationships. She lost her New Year's Eve hosting gig, a major annual television appearance. Some talk shows also declined to book her, presumably to avoid backlash. While not an official Hollywood decree, the abrupt cancellations amounted to an effective blacklist. Efforts to apologize did little to repair immediate damage, as many critics viewed the act as indefensible. She stood by her comedic style, but acknowledged the negative impact on her livelihood. Over time, some supporters rallied behind her, calling it a free speech issue, yet the mainstream's response remained mostly critical. Her story illustrates how even a figure known for pushing boundaries can cross a line that triggers severe professional repercussions. Though she continues to perform in smaller venues and occasionally appears on niche platforms, the scale of her previous opportunities has not returned. The industry at large seems unwilling to gamble on further controversy from her. Tippi Hedren. She was discovered by a legendary director and cast in a suspense thriller that became a classic. Initially, the partnership seemed mutually beneficial, with the director mentoring her closely. However, she later revealed years of unwanted advances and manipulative control behind the scenes. After consistently rejecting him, she alleges he used his substantial influence to limit her career opportunities. While under contract, she was not cast in other projects that could have showcased her range, effectively sidelining her. Even after the contract period, the lasting effects of his disparagement lingered. Casting directors were reluctant to hire someone whose powerful mentor-turned-adversary might retaliate. As a result, she missed out on roles that could have elevated her standing in Hollywood. Although she continued working in smaller productions, the promise of mainstream superstardom faded. Her situation underscored how a single influential figure's vendetta can derail someone's trajectory. She eventually spoke out, but the damage to her career was largely done by then. The story remains a cautionary tale about the imbalance of power and the consequences of spurning a high-profile figure's demands in an industry often known for gatekeeping and tightly knit professional networks. James Woods. He is known for his sharp-witted characters and strong on-screen presence, but his off-screen opinions placed him at odds with a predominantly liberal-leaning industry. His vocal support for conservative politics, including criticisms of high-profile Democratic figures, drew ire from segments of Hollywood that often value more left-leaning perspectives. He openly stated on social media that he believed he was blacklisted for his viewpoints, citing a notable downturn in audition invitations and project offers after he became particularly outspoken. Many in the industry deny an explicit blacklist, but it is widely acknowledged that aligning with unpopular political stances can limit one's job prospects in a field where personal beliefs frequently intersect with professional opportunities. Despite his talent and experience, he found fewer and fewer major roles, settling instead for smaller projects and independent films. Observers suggest that studios recognize the potential backlash from employing an actor who courts controversy with political commentary, and thus quietly distance themselves. While he remains steadfast in his beliefs, the visible decline in mainstream roles suggests that his political stance has indeed contributed to his diminished presence, effectively marking him as someone too divisive for many contemporary film and TV productions. Mel Gibson. He was once among Hollywood's most bankable stars, praised for directing and acting in blockbuster hits. However, a drunken driving arrest in 2006 led to a barrage of anti-Semitic remarks, thrusting him into a crisis of public image that few major stars recover from. Those statements, along with subsequent revelations of abusive language and recorded outbursts, caused studios and fans to distance themselves. He tried to make amends, but the severity of his comments made sponsors, co-stars, and industry professionals wary of partnering with him. While never formally banned, the chilling effect was noticeable. Major roles disappeared, and the high-profile directing assignments dwindled. Eventually, smaller independent producers took a chance on him, but his once universal box office appeal seemed irrevocably tarnished. A partial comeback arrived when he directed a war film that earned critical acclaim, suggesting some level of Hollywood's willingness to reconcile. Still, the support for him remains fractured. Many remain hesitant to fully endorse him, citing past behavior as incompatible with current industry values. Although he continues to find occasional opportunities, the once consistent stream of top-tier projects is far less certain, highlighting how serious controversies can permanently shadow an otherwise illustrious career. O.J. Simpson. He was a charismatic sports hero turned actor who appeared in popular comedies. However, everything changed when he became the central figure in one of the most highly publicized murder trials in American history. Although the jury ultimately acquitted him, a large segment of the public believed he was guilty, and that perception lingered well beyond the courtroom. Hollywood studios were unwilling to risk the intense backlash likely to follow any project he joined. The nature of the crime, brutal and personal, made it socially unacceptable to consider him for new roles, effectively freezing him out. No formal edict was needed. The overwhelming negative public sentiment was enough to ensure no mainstream producers would take a chance. Occasional interviews and reality TV-style projects emerged, but none gained traction because of the widespread disdain still attached to his name. Later legal troubles, including a robbery case that landed him in prison, further solidified his pariah status. Even after his release, film and TV producers showed zero interest in featuring him. His once promising entertainment path vanished, overshadowed entirely by the controversies surrounding the trial and the subsequent public consensus that simply would not forgive or forget. Dalton Trumbo. He was a prolific screenwriter whose works attracted both critical praise and commercial success. Then, during the early days of the Cold War, he was called to testify about suspected communist ties. By refusing to answer questions about his political affiliations, he ended up on a formal Hollywood blacklist. For a time, no major studio would credit him, though he continued to write in secret, providing scripts under pseudonyms or credited to other individuals. Remarkably, 2 of these covert projects won Academy Awards for Best Screenplay, even though his name remained hidden. The secrecy became nearly impossible to sustain as he penned hit after hit without public acknowledgement. Eventually, the subterfuge came to light, and industry insiders recognized that the exiled writer was still producing quality work. Over time, the climate in Hollywood shifted, and he regained official recognition, but only after years of professional exile and prison time for contempt of Congress. His story underscores how political fear can lead to widespread industry lockouts, yet also how determined talent can find ways to keep working. It remains a defining episode of how rigid and destructive blacklisting policies were during the era of heightened anti-communist sentiment. Harvey Weinstein. He once wielded immense influence as a leading film producer, credited with launching numerous careers and shaping Academy Award campaigns. Yet revelations in 2017 exposed decades of alleged misconduct involving multiple women. A flood of accusations cast a harsh spotlight on an environment that had allowed his abusive behavior to continue unchecked. As an immediate consequence, his production company severed ties and professional organizations distanced themselves. High-profile collaborators, once grateful for his support, denounced him publicly. The allegations fueled the broader hashtag #MeToo movement, leading more survivors to speak out against other powerful figures. Weinstein's downfall was swift. Industry honors were revoked, and he faced criminal charges. Convictions eventually arrived, resulting in a substantial prison sentence. He became a cautionary emblem of systemic failings in entertainment, showing how a single individual could intimidate and silence victims for years. Although not technically blacklisted in the traditional sense, he has been permanently expelled from respectable circles, with any references to him or his past achievements overshadowed by the severity of the accusations. No studio would entertain collaborating with him again, effectively ending his once dominant role in Hollywood and branding him a pariah for the foreseeable future. Charlie Chaplin. He was an undisputed pioneer of silent cinema, globally adored for his iconic comedic persona. Despite his status, or perhaps because of it, he became a target during the anti-communist hysteria that swept the United States mid-century. His outspoken political views, which some saw as sympathetic to leftist ideologies, alarmed authorities. When he traveled abroad for a film premiere, the U.S. Attorney General revoked his re-entry permit, effectively barring him from the country and, by extension, from its film industry. Many regarded that act as politically motivated. The ban turned him into a symbol of government overreach, but it also functioned practically as a blacklist from Hollywood itself. Without physical access to Los Angeles and its studios, he could no longer produce or star in his signature films in the same way. He settled in Europe, occasionally making new projects, but the era of his sweeping Hollywood dominance had already ended. Though not stripped of his global fame, he lost the direct connection to American audiences for years. Eventually, shifting attitudes allowed him to re-enter the United States briefly, but the damage was done. His experience showed how external politics could reshape the career of even the most famous stars. Bill Cosby. He was once revered as a groundbreaking comedian and star of a wholesome sitcom that reshaped television's portrayal of family life. Public sentiment changed when scores of women accused him of offenses dating back decades. Each new allegation dragged his reputation further down, and a criminal trial eventually resulted in his conviction, although this was later overturned on procedural grounds. During the height of the accusations, networks removed reruns of his show, and sponsors cut ties. Colleges revoked honorary degrees, symbolizing the dramatic fall from grace of a man who once championed education and moral values. Hollywood figures distanced themselves rapidly. No company wanted to be associated with the scandal. Even after legal technicalities freed him, the damage to his reputation proved permanent. He remains out of favor in every corner of mainstream entertainment, with no studio or agent expressing willingness to facilitate a comeback. Public outcry remains strong, and the type of widespread acceptance he enjoyed in earlier years appears impossible. Though not labeled an official blacklist, the result is the same. Effectively, no major entity will risk collaborating with him, leaving him with almost no path to reestablishing a once towering media presence. Amanda Bynes. She was a child star who smoothly transitioned into teen comedies, becoming a go-to choice for lighthearted roles. Things took a sharp turn as a series of erratic behaviors, legal troubles, and mental health concerns overshadowed her comedic gifts. She was arrested on multiple occasions for infractions ranging from driving offenses to alleged substance use. Social media posts also revealed concerning statements about other celebrities, fueling the perception that she had become unstable. Studios and networks saw these headlines and feared that casting her in new projects would be too risky, as insurance costs and production delays often surge when an actor's reliability is in question. No formal ruling banned her from Hollywood, but the compounding issues effectively dried up offers. Amid mental health treatment and a more private life, she voiced hopes of returning to acting. However, the once constant stream of comedic leads disappeared, leaving her future uncertain. Industry insiders note that trust is paramount. Producers need assurance that a performer can handle the demands of filming. Until she proves a consistent, positive presence on set, the barrier remains. In the meantime, she lingers in a prolonged hiatus, with many assuming she is quietly blacklisted. Kevin Spacey. He had a reputation as a chameleon-like performer, mastering roles that earned him multiple awards. His downfall started when fellow actors and crew members accused him of disturbing misconduct. Allegations of sexual harassment and assault dating back years surfaced, and several were tied to his time at a notable theater company. The ensuing outcry prompted rapid corporate responses. He was removed from a prominent streaming series he headlined and replaced in a nearly completed film. Even though he denied many claims, the damage was immediate and severe. Producers weighed public backlash, and most deemed any association with him unacceptable. Retrospective accolades were scrutinized. Some institutions distanced themselves by removing references to his past honors. Although a few legal cases were dismissed or found insufficient, the stigma remains, and major studios still steer clear. He attempted a comeback through online videos and lesser-known European projects, but the mainstream gatekeepers show no sign of letting him back in. The general perception is that he's become a high liability for marketing teams who anticipate audience rejection if he's involved. Effectively blacklisted, his career remains in limbo, providing a textbook example of how swiftly an actor's standing can crumble after serious allegations. Roseanne Barr. She achieved stardom through a sitcom that became a cultural touchstone, lauded for its honest portrayal of working-class family life. However, her problematic statements on social media, specifically tweets many deemed racist, led to a drastic and rapid downfall. The network revived her popular show decades later, but the offensive post immediately triggered a decision to cancel the reboot and remove her from the franchise. The fallout was swift, with cast members condemning the remarks and the entertainment community broadly denouncing her behavior. Although Barr apologized, claiming her words were misinterpreted or linked to medication, the damage was done. She became a polarizing figure almost overnight, leaving producers with little choice but to distance themselves. The cancellation ended what might have been a long-term comeback, and she has struggled to find new opportunities since. Industry executives likely view her as too risky, fearing further controversies that could overshadow any project's content. Public sentiment remains divided, but most mainstream outlets prefer not to engage with the kind of backlash her involvement could spark. Effectively, she stands on the outside, cut off from the same networks and production houses that once celebrated her as a groundbreaking television star. Randy Quaid. He was a recognizable character actor, appearing in major blockbusters and earning accolades for both comedic and dramatic parts. Over time, a series of bizarre legal entanglements, including allegations of unpaid hotel bills, squatting in a guest house, and claims of an alleged Hollywood star whacker's conspiracy, made him a tabloid fixture. These incidents led to multiple arrests, warrants, and an eventual flight to Canada, where he sought refugee status. The erratic behavior raised doubts about his reliability on set, overshadowing the talent he once displayed. Production companies prefer minimal disruption, and Quaid's personal life seemed to promise the opposite. While not formally blacklisted, the combination of negative press and ongoing legal issues effectively made him untouchable. Studios balked at the potential complications of insuring him or dealing with unpredictable offset drama. Despite occasional mentions of a comeback, offers never materialized, and the actor remains largely absent from mainstream film or television. Insiders note that repeated legal battles make it near impossible for him to secure the professional support and financing necessary for significant roles. Whether self-exiled or inadvertently forced out, his once steady career appears irreparably sidelined by the swirl of controversies and court disputes. Lisa Bonet. She emerged as a memorable presence on a family sitcom, later branching out into roles that revealed more daring choices. Speculation of a blacklist arose when she became involved in projects that conflicted with the wholesome image tied to her breakout show. Creative disagreements with influential figures also played a part in distancing her from mainstream television. Though no official ban was enforced, it seemed opportunities for bigger roles dwindled. Many producers either avoided her to stay in good favor with powerful personalities or felt uneasy with her shift toward more adult-themed content. This rift left her primarily with independent films and guest appearances, depriving her of the mainstream career trajectory many anticipated for her. Whispered Hollywood gossip further perpetuated the notion that she was deemed difficult or incompatible with certain family-friendly productions. Over time, she sustained a more low-key path, focusing on smaller-scale and passion projects. Fans regard her work highly, but the industry largely offers limited openings, possibly connected to her earlier controversies. Despite her talent, she never fully recaptured the high-profile success she initially enjoyed, suggesting that an informal blacklist may have been enough to keep her off the rosters of major studios and networks. Stacey Dash. She broke out in a classic teen comedy, becoming a household name for her charming role. In later years, however, her outspoken conservative opinions on talk shows and social media generated significant controversy. She criticized celebrities who promoted liberal causes and made provocative statements about race and politics, alienating a substantial portion of her fan base. Networks found her commentary divisive, which could discourage advertisers and complicate casting decisions. Eventually, her segments on a major news network ended, and offers for film and television roles became increasingly scarce. While she wasn't subjected to an official blacklist, it was widely perceived that her public persona limited commercial appeal. Producers worried about potential backlash from audiences who disagreed with her political stance. The entertainment industry typically leans progressive, so her conservative activism put her at odds with many influential decision-makers. Although she occasionally appears in smaller-scale projects, her mainstream visibility plummeted. The general sense is that her career stall correlates strongly with her divisive public profile. She has spoken about being silenced, but few in Hollywood appear ready to champion her return, underscoring how polarizing public commentary can derail an otherwise steady path. Monique. She reached a professional high point by winning a prestigious award for a chilling dramatic role that showcased her considerable acting prowess. Yet in the aftermath, she claimed that industry insiders wanted her to campaign more vigorously for the film, a request she viewed as unpaid labor. She publicly criticized powerful figures, alleging they hindered her ability to secure future opportunities. This led to tensions with prominent producers and media moguls who were said to have influence over casting and project greenlights. Despite her talent and accolades, she struggled to land roles commensurate with her skill, fueling suspicion of an unofficial blacklist. Years passed without the high-profile offers one might expect of an Oscar winner, lending credibility to her claims of systemic retaliation. Occasional projects did surface, but never with the consistent mainstream presence she had once enjoyed. She later took her fight public, naming influential individuals she held responsible for her career stall, which sparked debate about power dynamics in Hollywood. Many believe her outspokenness continues to repel big studios, who generally avoid contentious personalities. While she remains an accomplished performer, her ongoing disputes seem to confirm she is still on Hollywood's sidelines. Corey Feldman. He was a prolific child actor in the 1980s, recognized for roles that remain pop culture staples. Yet he has repeatedly claimed that powerful figures in the entertainment industry engage in inappropriate behavior toward him and other child performers. Over the years, he has tried to expose this alleged systemic issue, but found little mainstream support. Studio executives apparently regard him as a liability due to these outspoken claims, fearing he could stir legal complications or further controversies. As a result, he encountered significant obstacles in securing acting jobs. Roles for adult Corey Feldman became scarce, and many suggested that his revelations led to an informal blacklist. He remained somewhat active in smaller films and reality television, but major studios stayed away. Feldman's public fundraising campaigns and efforts to produce documentaries on the subject mostly failed to gain traction with big distributors. He believes a culture of silence within Hollywood prevents him from receiving the backing he needs to address the alleged misconduct. Supporters say his marginalization illustrates how open criticism of powerful insiders can effectively end a performer's mainstream prospects. Regardless of the truth behind his assertions, the resulting career decline speaks volumes about Hollywood's often guarded power structure. Brendan Fraser. He was a leading man in blockbuster adventures and comedies, celebrated for both his physicality and an everyman charm. However, his career took a significant downturn in the late 2000s. He later suggested one reason might involve an alleged unwanted advance by a high-ranking Hollywood figure. After speaking out, Fraser claimed he was rarely invited to the A-list circle and observed fewer casting calls for major roles. Industry whispers pointed to his claims as a potential factor in why his name disappeared from marquee projects. Other issues, such as injuries sustained from performing stunts, also affected his readiness for big-budget action roles. Yet he asserted that the lack of high-profile opportunities was partly a result of being blackballed for speaking against a powerful individual. For years, he struggled to land roles that matched the caliber of his earlier successes. Only recently has he experienced a renaissance with critically acclaimed performances, suggesting that times and attitudes may be shifting. But the long stretch of minimal mainstream offers remains a testament to how speaking up against a well-connected figure can undermine a career. While he never received an official ban, his abrupt disappearance hinted at Hollywood's talent for quietly turning its back on perceived troublemakers. Mira Sorvino. She earned an Academy Award early in her career, signaling a future of unlimited potential. However, in later revelations about a powerful producer's misconduct, it emerged that Sorvino might have been targeted for rejection after rebuffing his alleged advances. Directors admitted they were pressured to pass her over for plum roles, explaining why she inexplicably vanished from major film projects. Her resume shows a marked decline in high-profile appearances after achieving Oscar acclaim, which many attributed to sabotage by an influential gatekeeper who held grudges. Though not publicly branded as blacklisted, she effectively lost access to the kind of big-budget and prestige roles her talent merited. Years later, the minor Me Too movement corroborated her earlier claims, with other industry figures acknowledging they heard rumors, specifically warning them away from hiring her. Sorvino's story highlights how easily an actor's career can be derailed by a single individual who wields significant power. While she has found some roles in independent productions and television, the golden opportunities that typically follow an Oscar win never fully materialized. Only in more recent years have producers begun welcoming her back, but the damage to her trajectory remains clear evidence of an unwritten blacklist in Hollywood.